All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to the CPAL 高分会进讲, our CELPIP High Score Vocabulary Masterclass. If you're tuning into this explainer, you're obviously aiming for one thing, and that's a CLB9 or higher. We're going to be your intensive strategy guides today. We've got a high-energy, bilingual breakdown of the absolute must-know vocabulary for the CELPIP exam. Now, we're going to move fast, but don't worry, we're not skipping a single detail. Every word we cover today is literally a strategic tool designed to boost your score.
So our agenda today is relentless but simple. First up is understanding and analysis. Then we move to expression and communication. We've got exactly 15 crucial words to get through. For every single one, we'll use a strict 3-step formula: clear pronunciation, the exact Chinese translation, and the precise Canadian exam strategy. Ready? Let's go. Kicking things off with Part 1, Understanding and Analysis. This whole section is all about how you interpret and process information to absolutely dominate the reading and listening modules. Infer. Infer. The exact translation is 推断,推论. Now, your high-scoring collocations here are infer from context and infer a conclusion. In a typical Canadian workplace or school, this is really all about reading between the lines. When they ask you this on the CELPIP exam, especially in reading parts 3 and 4, or the listening test, they're testing if you can spot the hidden attitude of a manager or a writer. So yeah, this is a 5-star word. It's an absolute high-frequency must-know. Once you've inferred that hidden meaning, you're going to need to interpret. Interpret. This translates to 解释,诠释,口译. You'll commonly use this in phrases like interpret data or interpret as. Now, Canada is a super multicultural nation, right? So you'll constantly hear about medical and legal interpreters. But looking at the exam, this is a solid 4-star word that frequently pops up in reading part 4. That's the science section. You really need to know how to interpret different survey results or scientific data. And interpreting data perfectly allows us to predict. Predict. The Chinese meaning is 预测, 预言. Take a look at the collocations, predict the outcome, and weather prediction. Honestly, Canadians absolutely love talking about the weather. It's practically a national sport here. You're going to constantly hear Environment Canada predicting weather changes. On the CELPIP exam, this is a 4-star word that maps directly to reading and listening part 5, the news and report section. You'll often hear reports predicting housing prices or economic outcomes. Now, when those predictions aren't entirely clear, you might actually need someone to elaborate. Elaborate. This means 详细说明,阐述. The crucial detail here is the preposition. You always elaborate on something. In our famously polite Canadian workplace culture, if you don't understand a colleague, or maybe you need more details from your boss, you don't just say, tell me more. Instead, you say, could you elaborate on that? This 4-star word is absolutely vital for speaking and listening part 5. Exam graders are actively looking for your ability to elaborate on your own ideas to award you that CLB9. But hey, before you can clearly elaborate, you need an outline. Outline. This translates to 概述, 历史, 提纲. You'll want to pair this as a brief outline or outline the plan. This perfectly matches that direct, straight-to-the-point North American business email culture. When you're writing a proposal or an email, you always start with an outline. This is a 3-star foundational strategy word specifically for your writing task 1. Start your professional emails by outlining your purpose, for sure. When you're outlining your options, you'll inevitably compare. Compare, meaning 比较. The key pairings to remember are compare A with or to B and in comparison with. We do this daily in Canada, whether we're grocery shopping or making big life decisions. But listen closely, because this is a 5-star absolute necessity for the exam. Why? Well, because speaking task 5 is literally called comparing and persuading. If you don't master this word and its structures, you simply cannot pass that task with a high score. No way. And building directly on that thought, we have contrast. Contrast. This translates to 对比. The high-scoring connectors you want here are in contrast, by contrast, or noting a sharp contrast. In an academic setting, you'll pair this with our last word to compare and contrast. This is a fantastic 4-star logical connector. Using a phrase like in contrast in your writing or in listing part 6 viewpoints shows the grader you've got advanced logical flow, and that instantly boosts your score. All right, part 2, expression and communication.
Take a quick mental breather right here. We're halfway there. We're now diving into the final 8 words that dictate exactly how you produce your own high-level responses to score that CLB 9+.
To truly master expression, you absolutely must know how to persuade. Persuade? The meaning is 说服,劝说. You persuade someone to do something. Now, Canadian culture heavily values politeness. You don't force people to do things, you persuade them with good reasoning. This is another 5-star word because, just like compare, it's the exact core of speaking task 5. The prompt will literally tell you to persuade your family member or a colleague.
Often, persuasion requires you to actually demonstrate. Demonstrate. This translates to 证明,展示,示范,游行示威. High-scoring collocations include demonstrate how to and public demonstration. This word has a really fascinating dual context in Canada. In a corporate IT training session, you demonstrate software, but on the evening news, it usually refers to a legal public protest. For CELPIP, map this 4-star word straight to listening part 2, where you're constantly deciphering workplace instructions and demonstrations.
Rather than demonstrating specific facts, sometimes people generalize. Generalize, meaning, 概括, wie na fine-finer-tan. You can generalize about something or make a sweeping generalization. Canadians highly value diversity and individuality, so a very native, polite way to open an argument is to say, it's hard to generalize, but... This is a 3-star word, but let me tell you, using that specific phrase is an incredibly advanced structural move for writing task 2 surveys. It shows real nuance.
To avoid sweeping generalizations, a true professional will assess. Assess. This means 评估,评定. You can assess the situation, conduct a performance assessment, or a property assessment. The Canadian real-world applications for this are basically endless. A nurse's initial checkup, that's an assessment. Your annual property tax, it's based on a government assessment. So it's a 4-star high-frequency word, especially in social news or reading part 4, where city councils are assessing environmental impacts. After thoroughly assessing the situation, you must summarize. Summarize. This translates to 总结,概述. Key phrases to use are briefly summarize and summarize the main points. This brilliantly illustrates classic Canadian corporate culture. I guarantee you, at the end of every overly long meeting, someone will finally chime in and say, let's summarize what we've agreed on. For the exam, this 4-star word is your ultimate listening cue. When you hear to summarize, pay absolute attention because the answer to the main idea question is coming right after it. Okay, you're going to want to pay close attention to this next one because it's a tricky 4-star trap. Gist. Gist. Meaning, 主旨,要点,大意. The mandatory collocation here is to get the gist of something. This is a highly native North American idiom. When a Canadian doesn't catch every single detail but gets the overall main idea, they'll say, I got the gist of it. CELPIP loves to test this in the listening part 3 everyday conversations.
Once you catch the gist, it's time for a response. Response. This means 回答,答复,反应. Key collocations include in response to, prompt response, and no response. This right here is the absolute gold standard for Canadian business emails. You routinely end emails with, looking forward to your prompt response. Therefore, it's a 5-star essential for writing task 1. Whether you're writing a formal complaint or replying to management, you need to command this word. And finally, that brings us to our 15th term, coherence. Coherence. The translation is 连贯性,条理性. You always strive for logical coherence and definitely want to avoid a lack of coherence. Now, I really cannot stress this enough. This isn't just a 5-star vocabulary word. This is literally one of the 4 official CELPIP grading metrics in the speaking and writing rubrics. Canadian universities and professional environments absolutely demand that your sentences logically connect. You can't just jump randomly from idea to idea. Which brings us perfectly to our final and most critical question of this explainer. Does your CELPIP response show true coherence? Think about it. You now possess 15 essential masterclass tools, you know their exact Canadian contexts, and exactly where the exam will test them. But listen, memorization alone won't get you a CLB 9. Logical connection will. So are you ready to string these together and finally break past that score barrier? Keep practicing, be strategic, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.